Build compelling real-time apps quickly and scale them globally with the PubNub real-time network. Only PubNub delivers the core building blocks needed for any real-time application. Find out for yourself by signing up for free today. Visit pubnub.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Untether.tv. I'm your host and founder, Rob Woodbridge. I love mobile. You should know that by now. You've listened to 480 episodes at this point. My love of this is just the fact that it is such a disruptive device. But there are certain applications that make it even more disruptive, that is more useful for me. I've talked about the Moves app forever. You know, it sits in the background, it resides in the background. I don't have to launch it. It just does things in the background for me. And then when I want to know how many steps I've taken or the distance that I've gone, I just go to the app. It is something that I love. And this kind of inference, this kind of a contextual information that it's gathering is where I believe, and obviously a number of people believe, that this industry is going. And I have an amazing guest. He's a Canadian living in the Bay Area, Kevin Cheng, who is the co-founder of a company called Incredible Labs. They are the makers of an app called Donna, which is basically a mobile personal assistant app. And I can't wait to get into this. Welcome, Kevin. Thank you for coming on to Untether.tv. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
So Canadian and everything, I love this, is that it's a bond that we share. There are so many of us in the Bay Area. It's incredible. You know, it's certainly, I think that there are more people in California, more Canadians in California than there are Canadians in like Saskatchewan, right? Like in the entire province. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, man. Who wants to live in Saskatchewan? I'm sure there's one listener there. So thanks for doing this. Yeah. Well, maybe there was one listener. Now there isn't. He's gone. Sorry, Saskatchewan. Before we jump into this, I gotta understand. Is what you guys are doing? Do you consider this still an app, or are you kind of trying to, elevate this game away from the app and into this? You call it a personal assistant, and it really is an effective term for this. But is this an app? Is Donna an app?
That's a really, really good question, because we don't really consider Donna an app. We consider Donna a service, and we very deliberately named the product after a person's name to give you that feeling that you are interacting with a person, to give you that peace of mind of knowing like somebody's taking care of this stuff for me, so that I don't have to worry about this, and this, and this, and this being a broader and broader set of things. So right now, I'm sure we'll talk more in detail about the kind of specifics of Donna, but like one example is that Donna tells you when to leave to get to a meeting on time, and then gives you the directions. When you look at like how a person would interact with you in doing that, which we did. We interviewed a lot of personal assistants, executive assistants. We talked to a lot of people who have those assistants. And you think about like, what happens there? It's like somebody knocks on the door and says, Rob, it's time for you to leave to your meeting if you're going to get to the other thing on time because there's traffic. And here's a piece of paper that's the directions, and here's a piece of paper that's like the photo of who you're meeting with and some notes for the meeting. And you're like, great, thank you, Donna. So we kind of think of the phone and the app as the canvas upon which Donna is communicating with you. And it just so happens to be right now the only canvas and the only form. But like we certainly see Donna as somebody or a service that communicates with you in whatever way makes sense to you, whether that's texting with you, emailing something to you when it makes sense, or even phoning you because you're not paying attention to the phone. You're not paying attention to the push notifications because you have too many Zynga games popping up or something like that. So we think of Donna as a service, and the app is one of the avenues with which the service communicates with you and displays information.
It's a great way to describe it, because I think that the mobile environment gives rise to imagination, right? And it's not just that it has to reside on the device, but you can leverage all facets of this device to be able to do what it's supposed to be doing, which is, in this instance, getting you from A to B on time, right? And making sure you leave at the right time. But just for those who are listening and don't understand the name Donna, there's so many theories that came out right when this app came out, but it is named after Donna Moss from one of my favorite television shows of all time, which is The West Wing. What's the lore there? What's the mythology about Donna Moss that made you guys name it after her?
So the first decision is name it after a person. Give it a person's name.
Why do that? So just to humanize the whole experience?
So originally we had the idea to just use like initials or something like that, so that anyone could assign whatever name they wanted to the product. But then one of the pivotal moments was actually when we had a conversation with somebody I used to work with at Twitter, Rael Dornfest, who prior to Twitter, he had founded a company which made a product called I Want Sandy. And that was sort of a similar type of product, an email assistant, a little bit before its time. And he talked a lot about how there was this emotional connection that he felt that his users had with Sandy. They would say things like, they would write in to support and say, hey, I think I made Sandy mad because I was a little bit rude with her, and I'm really sorry about that. And just like, really, it's not like they thought Sandy was real, but you just sort of, I think that we want to interact with humans even or human-like things, even when we know that they're not human. It's sort of like how if you have like 2 eggs and bacon, your brain just sees a face.
Yes.
And like it's in our nature to want to kind of associate with something that's human-like. So we were like, we should do a name. It should be something that you can relate to, but it shouldn't be something that you can just name whatever you want, because we think of this character as somebody that's really, really super intelligent, super smart, super efficient, professional, who can do it all and who can like manage everybody's day. And you can't rename that person no more than that person can rename you. Right? So then we're like, okay, we're going to give a name. What's the name we should choose? And we threw around like famous assistant names, and like there were things like Alfred was thrown out there, Radar from Radar Rod, Ash, and like the Alfred thing has this weird like butler classist feel to it, and we felt like Donna was really just, it rang really well as a name, but also was like embodied by a strong character. And then, there are other factors, of course, like don.na was a domain that we were able to get. And we had @Donna on Twitter. And so like everything just sort of quickly fell into place, and we're like, this is a person. And, it's even like, we use the term personal assistant app because that's kind of what everyone is talking about in terms of the nomenclature. But really, we think of Donna as more of a chief of staff than an assistant. Donna is just capable of doing so much more and really managing your day, not assisting your day.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't have the same ring to be like a chief of staff app.
I was going to say, and Leo doesn't work as well as Donna does.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's an empowering name, I'm up in Canada, iOS, so I don't have something like Google now, and it was kind of an interesting pioneer into these things, and so I looked very closely at an app called Grokr, and Grokr accumulated things that were it was very much like Google now, but it never went anywhere. But there was no personal feel to an app called Grokr, right? It made me feel like all you're doing is grokking things, is accumulating things for me, and there was no real intelligence on top of that, like something like Donna. And then, I mean, you complemented that with a very strong design, UI UX experience around the application to kind of complement this kind of, I don't know, like somewhat. I think Donna's like old school. Maybe even an assistant is old school for some. But I really like the way that it all came together. But I got to know, what was the second name? So say Donna doesn't work. Did you remember what the second name was?
What do you mean the second?
Like was there ever another name? Like if you couldn't get don.na, what was the next name you were thinking?
There wasn't yet at the time.
Okay, so it was Donna, and that was it.
I mean, like we like I said, we considered Radar, we considered Alfred, we considered other first names. Lots were thrown around, but nothing was ever really serious. Nothing really stuck. One of the things that we did want to do was make sure that it was somebody that you could actually just refer to with a very clear pronoun, so that you felt like you were talking to a person.
All right. So a little bit of behind the scenes, or a little bit of background here, is that you started this company when? This is a recent start for you guys. So Incredible Labs, with the idea that Incredible Labs would spin out companies or apps like Donna, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When did you start Incredible Labs?
So Incredible Labs has started the beginning of 2012, and we are Incredible Labs. That means that we can try different things, but the reality is that our primary focus was and has always been Donna.
So that's when you started development as well, around that same time for Donna?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And back then, we were just less than a handful of people.
Yeah, right. Well, and I think that's where the idea starts somewhere. And why this space? Like 2012, early 2012, it just seems like especially in the Valley, and in San Francisco, you've got these groupings around certain types of applications that kind of arise at the same time. Now whether that's because it's such a I don't know, an intertwined city, right? That there's so many connections in that city. But why attack this challenge, which is to turn this into a much smarter device than it is, and so early?
Yeah, so I think I can answer a couple. One towards the groundswell and that effect. So just to speak to that part for a second, I think that sometimes it's just around, we all recognize the trends, and there are no original ideas. It's all about execution, and everyone like you see all these players in the space right now, and it's very clear we all have very different thesis and different approaches to it. So what we all recognize are the technological trends together, and we're all smart enough to do that. The other part is, I think you're right. There's a lot of talking that goes around, and I think that that's a good thing. I think that we tend to not be stealth. We liked to say for a long time, before we were really out there, that we were not stealth, but we were also not public. Right, so there's a difference between publicizing everything and being completely stealth and not saying anything. So if you're in conversations with anybody in the city, we had no problems sharing what we were working on, but we weren't posting screenshots or something like that.
Right.
And I think that in general makes for better products across the Valley. I mean, it's not just here. It's not just tech. I always thought it was funny that in Hollywood there would be 2 animated insect films in the same year and 2 disaster volcano films in the same year. It's just, I think that it's a nature of a very tight-knit industry. But in terms of why specifically for our space, the way we looked at it, and definitely I agree with you. Beginning of 2012, Google Now wasn't announced yet. Most of the products you see out there were not announced or out on the market yet. So everyone has started work around the same time. We identified it as 3 different trends, some more recent than others. The first is more and more APIs are available for third-party information that are just sort of available for lookup. They're facts in a way. whether that's like restaurant reviews or movie times or the weather or whatever else. There's just more and more things that are accessible through third parties. The second is your information is more structured and available online. And that means like your email, your calendar, your contacts, who your friends are, what you're interested in, those sorts of things, or who your business contacts are. All of these are now more structured and available. And then the last piece, of course, is the mobile context, which you opened with talking about moves and such, is like, where are you? How fast are you moving? Where were you? Things like that. All of those, which way you're pointing, all of these contexts is now in your pocket. So we saw the intersection of these three and realized like this predictive technology is really just something that is going to happen, and now it can. And it's not a new idea, right? Like when Siri came out, everyone talked about Knowledge Navigator and how Scully made a video of this type of assistant in the 80s, 86, I think it was.
Yep.
And I'm sure Scully wasn't even the first. So the idea is super old. It's just that now we're in a place where we can actually do it.
Certainly mobile is the enabler here, beyond a shadow of a doubt, right? The processing capabilities that we have in this, but it's also the contextual pieces that come from this, as you said, all of those things. But it's also that it's become our most personal device. So like, it had to have been all of those things. Like, did you have a passion for like us, becoming a personal, like, did you have a passion for personal assistant, or was it an idea that you had long before and you thought one day we're going to do that? Or is it just that those trends emerged and you said, well, what is going to be the next biggest thing that comes from this when we have app overload and information overload and direction overload?
Yeah, I think the kind of genesis story to that is actually from my co-founder Scott, and he was the one that sort of brought the founding team together, and he had left his previous company Grayson, and he was consulting and independent for about a year. During that time, he took a lot of meetings as well, and he was finding himself doing a lot of legwork that was pretty repetitive, things like looking up when he should leave, looking up traffic, looking up information about the person, just a whole there are a number of buckets of things that he was like, I keep having to do this, and really like technology should be able to figure out that I'm doing this over and over again and do this for me before I even need to do it. There's sufficient information that shouldn't be necessary for me to do. So that's when he was interacting with a lot of people that had assistants during those meetings, and like,
sure,
I want like that.
Yeah.
So we really kind of want to build this experience of lowering everyone's cognitive load, letting them focus on the things that are important to them, and giving everybody that experience of somebody taking care of a bunch of stuff on their behalf. But yeah, so that's really kind of how the genesis was. And I kind of came on closer to the tail end of that when I left Twitter, and then like I knew I also wanted to start something. We kind of got together and jammed out some new ideas around that as well, around the assistant stuff, and expanded on it.
What was the first thing that you guys built? Not a minimum viable product, but what was the first feature that you looked at and said, okay, this is where we start?
Mm-hmm. We looked at a number of different use cases, and like just as an example, one thing that is like an assistant, something an assistant might do is tell you birthdays, right? And tell you birthdays and let you maybe send the greetings ahead of time. And like, I have a big pet peeve about Facebook birthday reminders, because it's like, well, I'm not going to remember even tomorrow's ones. You've given me the whole week's worth, and I'm just not going to remember. But at the same time, I don't want one every day. right?
And the day of is too late to get them anything, right? To your true friends,
Right.
anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, but even to wish them like a good, like to spend time to write like a thoughtful
Yeah.
note instead of like, "Happy birthday, bro."
Oh, yeah. I have one friend that he just all I'd say HB and then your initials, so it'd be like HBRW, and
Yeah.
I mean I feel it. It's like it's deep love right there, right? HBRW. Yes, I love you too, man. It's yeah, you're right. I mean, you know what? It's almost desensitized. And it's not a rant, but it's almost desensitized the birthday. It's devalued the birthday, hasn't it?
So, anyways, that's one of the assistant use cases.
Yeah.
It's easy to build. We feel like we would find use out of it. But the thing is, it doesn't really help with the larger vision of what Donna could be in terms of intelligence, in terms of like starting to get to know you and understand your behavior. So we didn't feel like that was the right first thing to build, even though it was the easier thing to build.
Was it just because it was too simple or not impressive or like?
Well, it's very simple, which is appealing,
Yes.
actually,
Yeah.
which is why we considered it. But it doesn't. There is a path that is Donna, which is like this predictive, intelligent agent that knows enough about you to really help you and be one step ahead of you. The things that the birthday thing would do would not serve that.
Gotcha.
In an as direct way. So basically, we looked at all these different use cases, and the one we balanced on was, in fact, the one that you have now, which is telling you when to leave to get to a meeting on time. So the first thing we built really was actually looking up directions and looking up your calendar.
And then that obviously, I mean, it's so important. It's a core function of this. And when you put it out there, I mean, how long did it take you to develop that? Some might think that this is an overnight thing, but from the idea to actually having something in production, how long did it take you guys to do that?
Well, really 18 months. And when you look at it on the surface, as we did as well, we looked at it and we're like, you just take calendar and then where you are and then look up the directions and you're done.
Yeah.
But in reality, there are so many moving parts and so many things that are not structured the way they should be, and so many different calendar services that, and a ton of different concerns that it ended up taking much longer than we thought to get it right. But in addition to that, what we really were spending a lot of time on was actually getting this experience of what your day looks like right as well. So we went through 3 or 4 major iterations and design approaches to how to visualize your calendar because like really there's a lot of calendar apps out there, and a lot of them are beautiful and doing interesting things, but they're mostly kind of still the same. Right? And we were trying to take the good parts and add to that and not automatically take all the parts of what makes a calendar.
So you kind of wanted to bring out, like, because it's not a calendar replacement application, right? This isn't something that is going to replace a standard calendar. It's not, because it only shows a certain number of days, and then the emphasis is on the next day, right? Every night before I go to bed, I get a little message from Donna that says, "Hey Rob, you have 4 appointments tomorrow," or "Hey Rob, you have no appointments tomorrow. Enjoy the day," right? I love those little encouraging messages she gives me, and I use Tempo for my calendar, and that's a socially aware and contextually aware calendar when I need a macro view. But this really is about micro. This is over your next couple of days, isn't it? It's designed that way.
Yeah, well, because what Donna is designed for and what Donna is as a service is what do you need next,
right?
At all points in time, right? And like sometimes that means your calendar for that day. Sometimes it means your calendar for tomorrow. Rarely is it your calendar for a month from now.
Yeah.
So what is that thing you need the very next moment? So when you get a notification that says, "Rob, you have to leave for your meeting," what is the very next thing you need? And that next thing is the directions and who you're meeting with. So if you open it then, that's what you get. If it's like, "Rob, you have a conference call in 5 minutes," what is the next thing you need? It's to be dialed in So when you slide that notification, you just go straight into the call.
And is there visions of things that, obviously there's many things you can do, and I don't want to kind of theorize about that, but is your vision to be able to say that there's no transportation other than automobiles right now, but for those kind of things like conference calls,
biking and walking.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, I'm not going to get transported from, like, automatic transportation from where I am, unless when the Google car pulls up at my door. I think that's an interesting piece. But if for example, do you see it at a point where you're going to start to do things like, look, it's a friend's birthday, based on their social patterns and what they enjoy and how many times they go to a restaurant and they check in through Foursquare, they share an experience through Facebook, that they know somehow that Donna accumulates enough information to be able to say, okay, well, it's their birthday, we're going to send them a $20 gift card, digitally, or an Amazon card or something like that. Or else that conference call to be able to then automatically just dial you in, and all you do, the phone rings and you pick it up and you're in the conference call. Like, is that the kind of envisioning you guys have gone through to be able to create this product, or do you go that far?
Yeah, I mean, the conference call actually is pretty much that.
Okay.
It dials you in. Well, if it's GoToMeeting, it dials you into the app, into the meeting.
Wow.
If it's a conference call, punches in the conference call for you. Like it goes almost every step of the way to that, as far as really the phone allows.
Yep.
But we're very careful about not over recalling on these things. So for us, it's much more important to be precise, to give you the thing that you are most likely going to need, and if we're not sure, better to not do it than to because that would be just super annoying for you to accidentally calling into something or whatever else. So yeah, I think that is what we're trying to do. The birthday thing, maybe not that specifically. And one of the things about the birthday thing is, like, that's an over recall, right? If you buy something that's wrong, that's a really high cost. Or if you buy something that you didn't even want to buy something, because it's like, oh, that's my ex-wife, and we don't talk anymore. You think that we talk a lot because we used to email a lot, or we're emailing a lot about legal matters, and now you just bought her a present, and that's very awkward.
That's odd. Yes.
So, like, there's a lot, like, and this was a Google Buzz use case, but like so we're really careful about that. But yes, that is essentially the path that we take. Is what is the thing you need next? What is the thing you need next? Let's try to give that to you with minimum effort, whether that is going to a different, and that can be going to a different app. So calling an Uber is something that you can do from Donna, which is as close as we get to having transport.
Right. I mean, I really, it's fascinating, because you're right. There is a threshold where you cannot cross, right? Where even based on the current form and the knowledge that we have, and the level of intelligence that you can provide, Donna, there's a threshold that you don't want to cross because of privacy issues, and, as you said, the awkward concerns, right? And I mean, there must be ideas that you guys have thrown out that you guys were thinking of, like, at the beginning, this would be perfect inside of this application. Were there any of those that you just said, nope, we can't put that in there on exploration?
Too many to remember.
Yes. I can understand that. I mean, but there's got to, like, I keep thinking that there's got to be a way to turn this into a form of revenue. With all the either all the data that you're collecting, all the information that you're collecting, even as a service, can you start charging for Donna? I mean, is that important to you guys right now, or are you just trying to create a product without friction for users right at this moment?
Obviously, like, right now, we're more focused on just creating a great product, but it would also be incredibly irresponsible to not have been thinking about this. We mirror almost everything after what it would be like to have a human assistant or manager helping with your life. If your assistant said, Rob, it's time for your lunch meeting. By the way, I made a reservation at this restaurant because they paid me $5 to do that. You'd be like, you're fired.
And then I take that $5 and put it in my pocket. No.
Or, like, they pay me $5 to mention this restaurant that you should check out. Like, it's like, no. So we we really are pretty sensitive about the data that is being collected, or um, and we want it to be for you, right? So anything that Donna learns or understands and is predictive about has to be only for you and you alone. So it can't be sold to other people. It can't be um, it can't be used for advertising targeting. It has to be for you. And what that means is we want to build a valuable enough service that you would pay a subscription to just as you would pay for an assistant, except tiny, tiny fraction of the cost of it.
I mean, so at what point at what point does an app like Donna, at what point are you able to convert that into a for-pay service? Have you given that thought? Like, is it a certain user base where you know that, 80% will opt not to do that, but that 20% that do still give you a good base of revenue? Is there a threshold for this? And if so, what could it be? Because I know that a lot of companies struggle with this very thing, right? Which is, it's free now, but do I just add another level of service on top and charge for it? Or do I, at some point, just turn it all on as a subscription? I mean, do you guys you must give that a lot of thought.
I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head that those are kind of two of the main paths.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we're quite at the place that we know the answer in our case. And it's different from user to user for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, from application to application. What works for one may not work for another.
Right. I mean, it's always like, because I invest a lot in these applications, right? And they come into our inboxes, and then they come onto our phones, and they're free for a long time. And my fear is that, I waited forever for something like Rocker, and then, it was a terrible experience. Like that application, I don't think I'm telling anybody anything new. It's the same thing that, Google Now on iOS is a terrible experience, right? It's just not good. It's false hopes that they were giving me, and so I used it, and I was like, "Come on, it's going to be great." And then they discontinue Grokr, right? So I invest.
I was going to say they wouldn't disagree either, I guess, because
they canned it. But I see that. I see Milk and Kevin Rose coming out with and building a community around these applications, and then just saying, screw it, we're going to go to Google, right? And leaving their users in the lurch. But I think it's buyer beware with free. So I always wonder about that. Is that, like, I invest in these things, and granted, it's very easy to get Donna set up and running and acting on your behalf. But if I become reliant on this thing, on her. The last thing I want you to do is pull it away. I'll pay for it, and I'm the guy that you want, because it's like, okay, Rob, well, that's $20 a month, and I would gladly pay, right?
Right.
So that has to play into your mindset as you go through with all of the buzz and accolades that you've been getting. That at some point you've got to be able to turn that revenue on, and that frightens me a little bit. Does it frighten you?
What does?
Like the idea of turning revenue on. Like, do you have concerns? Like, there's a utopian view, like open access to data, right? Where it should always be free, and right. That perception in mobile is that a lot should always be free.
I don't think frightened would be the way I would term it. In terms of turning on revenue is something that we think about a lot. And we think about where that threshold is. We don't think we're at that place where, in fact, we're pretty strong believers in that we're not at a place where we should be charging for it yet. Just in terms of like where we are in the vision as well.
Yeah.
And when we feel that we're ready, I think that it's not like I'm going to be nervously pressing the button. It's going to be like, okay, now we're ready to answer some questions. Yeah. And that's really kind of what it's going to be about. It's like, I'm going to have questions, and we're going to have ways to answer it, and people like you are going to help answer it, and we'll gladly do so.
Do you think, and it's a great answer, and I don't want to push this anymore about when you're turning on revenue, and I kind of I don't want to put this into your context, but do you think that a lot of companies, especially in the mobile space, they're not confident enough in their product to be able to charge at any point? Like, do you think that it's, do you think that at some point it's, as you just said, you have to create a product that that I use every day and I can't live without it. And at that point, turning on revenue is going to be an easy switch. But do you think that a lot of companies, there's so much trepidation around turning on revenue because they're not confident in the product? Do you see that in the Bay Area?
I can't read people's minds. I have no idea if that's why they would or would not. Frankly, like, there are lots of companies that are perfectly comfortable charging.
Yeah.
There are plenty of companies that come out of the gate and charge 99 cents, $2.99, $4.99, or have in-app purchases. So I don't know that I think that those that are free have good reasons to do so. Oftentimes it's because the goals are loftier than what they would get from charging immediately. And I think that that's a great thing.
And I think that's where you guys fit into this. I mean, obviously this is a huge opportunity simply because of the amount of activity that goes on in there. We talked at the very beginning about this experience, right? The in-app experience versus, I asked you if this is an app, and maybe talk a little bit about the what you described to Robert Scoble in an interview you did with him when you launched the app, which was the to-app experience versus the from-app experience. Right now, pretty much everything that we do happens in the app, in an app where you launch the app and you go in. It's traditional software, desktop software. You guys are a little bit different like that. And talk about your view of the to-app versus the in-app or from-app experience.
Yeah. So the way we look at it is that there is absolutely an app overload problem.
Yes.
There's an information overload problem and an app overload problem. And if you're looking to do something, the process can often involve deciding between 5 different apps. I have one folder that's just a collection of apps for figuring out where I should eat. And I never know which one I should open. But like, even beyond that, which is like one specific use case, some of the use cases are really around, really require you to actually go to multiple apps. So the use case we currently serve best on getting to the next meeting, it's like checking the time, then checking calendar, then opening maps, then opening email to search for someone's phone number, and then texting them to say that you're running late or whatever.
Right.
Maybe looking up transit. So it's like anywhere from 4 to 6 apps in this like super stressful time that you're running late and driving at the same time.
Exactly. Yes.
So we think of Donna as this filter, both of information and tasks, to like streamline everything such that Donna comes to you with the information you need. So you don't ever have to like worry about it. You don't think about Donna, the app. You know that Donna is going to come to you with information, and you just have that peace of mind. Like I just had this, not too long ago where I was in this coffee meeting with a friend, and I knew that I had to get to this other meeting, and it was quite important. And I just put my phone down like in front of me, and the phone turns off, so you can't even see the time. And I just knew Donna was going to tell me when it's time to leave. And like you were mentioning the nightly notifications where Donna says how many meetings you have the next day. So it's really like Donna comes to you with the information when you need it, and you don't have to think about going to the app and doing things. And you can get value without even ever going into the app.
And I think that is crucial, and that is it's such a big differentiator, and especially in this world, as you said, of app overload and information overload, to be able to bring the relevant information to you at the right time under the right context is so important. Just a few more questions, Kevin. Just around, you left one of the. I think the darlings of the startup world, which is Twitter, as they're hitting their stride or trying to hit their stride and turning revenue on, and it's interesting for me to understand what you brought in there from an entrepreneurial standpoint. It seems to me a very entrepreneurial organization, but what you brought with you across into Incredible Labs and then to Donna, was there like going into Twitter and then emerging on the other side and starting your own company. I mean, what lessons did you bring from that experience, and what, I don't know, what kind of culture did you bring into the business as a result of that? Was there anything that obviously it made a huge impact on you?
Yeah, and it has. I mean, I think that I do think everything you do leads up to this point in time, right? Whatever point in time that is, everything you've done has led up to this point in time. And so, like, I think that it's really the aggregate of my experiences from my very first job to now that lead into the startup experience. So I draw lessons from all of these different places, and I can definitely pinpoint, like, some things are from here and some things are from here. So from Twitter, it's obviously like what it's like to work in success, but also what it's like to work in, like, an incredibly talented team with a lot of different roles that are all very good at their role, whether it's legal or trust and safety or marketing, things that you normally, like, aren't thinking as much about when you're doing a startup. You learn from some of the best in breed there, and that's just really fantastic. And I think, like, they had a culture of thoughtfulness and transparency that really, like, was in fact one of the reasons I joined as well, and one that I've taken with me in terms of how some of that is implemented. I think so. When I've been obsessed with startup culture since my very first job, because that was a company that cared about culture, and it was 99 before anyone else had even that term. And when I interviewed with Ev, who was CEO at the time, Ev Williams, he was like, so, what do you want to be doing eventually, and things like that. And I was like, well, actually, like, I know that I want to start a company, and if it's not now, it's going to be later. In fact, like, I've thought so much about that I have a wiki for myself where I keep notes on the kind of culture I want to be building, and I've been building that wiki for like 6 years. And he's like, "Oh, I'd love to see that." And I was like, okay, that wasn't really something for public consumption. And just pull it up on the phone here. And we had an incredible conversation around that. And it was very clear that we were very well aligned in those things. And it was one of the big, one big thing that Ev said then, which I think is very true, is that the job of a CEO is building two different products. One of the products is the thing that everyone talks about. The other product is the company. And that's just as much a product that you have to kind of design and build.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's so true. The culture for employees, for former employees, for current or for prospective employees, I think that especially in the battle for talent, and here in Ottawa, there's a battle for talent, simply because it's a scarce resource, and there are good companies here that are picking them up. But I can't, when I talk to people in the Bay Area, it's the exact same thing. Is that, but there are big companies and just attracting an insane amount of talent from around the world, and you still can't consume. These companies can't consume enough of the talented people. So culture then plays into it, and I have this conversation all the time. Around office space and culture and that openness and the freedom to build and to be entrepreneurial inside of businesses, and some people look at it as a generational thing, but I believe that it's so important, and it sounds like you're bringing that into what you're doing with Donna and Incredible Labs. You're
absolutely right. Those are the areas that we really think are the most important.
You have to value it, right?
Yeah, but I think you're dead on about, like, everything from prospective employees to former employees. It all matters.
Yes, yeah. Well, and it can be a brutal loop if you get any of that wrong, right? Like it sullies the whole experience. But it's interesting because you kept a wiki, and I love that concept of keeping a wiki. And I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs in the mobile space that think like, earlier on I did it to you. It's like, do you ever think about these kind of huge features that will revolutionize the world? And then they head down that path. They're not, maybe they can't contain it. And, I always advise, I say, like, take those ideas and put them somewhere. Don't lose them, but put them somewhere, and then get them out of your head and focus on the things at hand. But it seems like, when inspiration strikes, you have to follow that inspiration. So, it's part of a culture. It's part of a city like San Francisco or Austin or something like that. But, where do you find your inspiration? How do you go through that process? You described how you invented Donna, how you guys came together on Donna by looking at 4 or 5 or 6 different things that were going to converge, and they were going to converge for now, right here. I mean, how do you find your inspiration like that to be able to build these companies or come up with these ideas?
I think it's about curiosity. I think it's about like always being curious, and to me, that maxim, the future is here, just not evenly distributed. So I definitely feel like I kind of try to live that in a way where I'm trying different things in ways that most people wouldn't, in order to but also beyond just the trying, really thinking about those things, right? Really processing why things are the way they are. When I see new products out there, whether they're successful or not, I look at them and I go, what is it that this is trying to accomplish? Why is this done this way? Or why are people really attracted to this thing? What is it that keeps them coming back? And when you look at like everyday life, you're observing things and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Why do people have to like keep doing that thing over and over again? So it's being curious, being observant, and actually but paying attention is so important. And I think that actually, to me, applies in general and is a very key indicator for kind of personality types, where if you see somebody that's like kind of been at a job for many years and has sort of like mostly kind of stagnated in their growth, it's like, whereas like there are others who can go somewhere and just skyrocket, and it's because like they learn really quickly and they're paying attention and they're not making the same mistakes twice, and they're understanding why things are working or not working, and that just applies overall. When you can apply that to a broader scope of things and have more data, more inputs, inspiration is just naturally going to happen. And I would say like I can't discount being in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you get to talk about these things. We mentioned before the call that one of the reasons I moved to San Francisco was that I went to South by Southwest in like 2004, and I talked to all these people and they spoke the same language, and most of them were in the Bay Area. What that means is you start with a different level of vocabulary. You don't have to like catch up and talk about all these things. You're already at this point, and that allows you to like keep talking from that point up, and that's really, really powerful.
It's like when I learned how to play the guitar, I didn't go to a class with a bunch of people that were learning how to play the guitar.
Right.
I went and I played with somebody who actually knew how to play the guitar. So my game elevated immediately as a result of that. And it's the exact same thing, is that when you start at a higher level, you get over the crap much quicker, right?
But also, like, once you know how to play guitar, then imagine that you were then talking to beginners.
Yeah.
To try to discuss like experimental music on the guitar or some new riff or something like that. Like, it just can't happen.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do you can't find inspiration from that. So you will, well, actually, I mean, you can, but it's a different type of thing.
Yeah.
It's then observing them, and that's a different type of inspiration.
It's so fascinating. And where else would you go? Like, San Francisco attracts enough people, right? I mean, that's the beauty of it, is that it is a mecca of places, right? It is, we're both Canadian. It's been a while since you lived in Canada, But at one point, some certain cities like Toronto and Ottawa and Vancouver have an ability to attract talent and attract energy. But when things go bad, certain areas like Austin and certain areas like San Francisco continue to attract people because of the lore and because of the access to people. Where else would you go? Is there anywhere else that you could go to find this level where you guys are at right now? No, I know. I don't know anyone. I was hoping, right? Somewhere on the East Coast, maybe like New York or Boston or something, or does it parlay the same way as San Francisco? I don't think it does.
I think it depends what your question is. I think that every place is different, not better or worse. They have different things. And so New York now has a unique mix of like media, fashion, and tech, and of course finance.
Right.
And LA is building a tech scene, and they have kind of a unique take as well. And Vancouver has traditionally been more of a video game industry mecca.
Yep.
So like, if I was to build games, I can do it here, and there is an industry here. But Vancouver well, now it's the whole industry is suffering. But
yes.
Vancouver is a fantastic place to like riff on that and get inspiration and work in the community of that, even if you're an independent developer, which, my brother actually has his own video game company out there. So, so I think that it's just different in each of these places. And so, yeah, there are other places I could go.
But this is where you found that serenity, right?
So I've lived in many cities, and I really call San Francisco home, and it's not because of the tech, though. For me, it's actually more of a personal connection to some of the people that I've met here. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I think that the tech is great. There's no denying, but there have to be other things.
I agree. I feel like I could talk to you about this forever, Kevin. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I have one last question. It's a frivolous question because I don't know how to transition very well. I'm not very good at this interviewing thing. So, I'll just go into the next question, which was, aside from the app Donna, the experience and the service Donna, what else fascinates you? What else on your device or around your device, around the mobile space, do you look at and think, oh crap, I wish I had invented that? Is there anything that you're seeing out there that you're like, that you use every day that think, like, I used to listen to Dire Straits for one song, like Walk of Life, Dire Straits. And I thought, God, I like that song. What's that?
I'm very familiar with that song, actually.
Yeah. Well, I thought, like, I wish Bruce Springsteen had written that song. I would like it a little bit more, right? That's the way I think. So is there anything that you look at and think, man, I wish I had written that?
You're not a Mark Knopfler fan?
No. Well, I am, but I'm more of a Springsteen fan. And I just think he would do a better version of it. That's all. But I, that kind of thing where you think, I wish he had written that song, or I wish I had developed that or built that. Is there anything that you can think of?
I mean, what do you mean by that? Like, I wish I had built that.
Well,
why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, not even why didn't I think about it? It's something that you use every day that you're thinking, oh, it's so simple, but man, why didn't I think of that?
I would say like the ride-sharing services is definitely.
Like Lyft and those guys?
Yeah. Lyft and Uber, those guys. Like, that's definitely one of those where it's like, yes.
Duh, right?
So good.
Yeah.
So needed, and really exactly what we needed. Like, I wouldn't even say that about like TaskRabbit or those sorts of other sharing economy things, but like, but ride sharing has just, I also understand that I'm in a unique city where taxis just kind of really, really suck, and transit is subpar. So like it's like this perfect combination that makes it work particularly well here. Whereas like I lived in Hong Kong for a while, and I can sneeze, and there's a taxi, and it's very cheap. And if there's 2 people in the taxi, it's cheaper than riding a bus. So like Uber would not make sense to me there. But in this scenario, it's just like, wow, that's really, it's really well done, and it's a perfect use of mobile.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It hit a market. Uber is it. The simplicity of that, and I think that everybody understands it, which is the key as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so Kevin, I've now taken up almost an hour of your time. Where do we send people to find out more information? Is this available in Canada yet, or it's just in the US, isn't it?
Actually, we launched in Canada a week and a half ago.
Okay, good. I mean, I have a US account, so I got to, as soon as you launched in the US, I downloaded it. But so it's available Canada. Is it available around the world or just in Canada?
US and Canada currently.
Yeah.
And we'll slowly roll it out to other countries as well.
Is that a challenge of localization and language and that kind of stuff as well, or is it?
I would say that it's a general getting it right.
It's,
making sure that we've gotten it right for whatever markets we open to, especially since it's around being a reliable service to tell you when to leave to get places.
Yes.
So, the website is don.na. And you can download the app from there.
And it's iOS only for now until you get that right as well, and then you'll move it over.
Exactly right. You can follow us on @Donna on Twitter.
This is perfect, Kevin. Thank you so much for doing this. I really, really, really appreciate your time, insight. We touched a little bit on the app, and we talked mostly about building a great culture in a startup, and I love doing that. So it's I really appreciate you humoring me to do this as we've done.
I feel like it's a good balance of talking about lots of interesting things.
I appreciate it. We have been speaking with Kevin Cheng, who is the co-founder of a company called Incredible Labs, the maker of Donna. If you haven't downloaded it, go do it right now. Go to don.na to find out more information, or just go to the iOS store if you're an iPhone user. Go to the iOS store and download it, and let me know what you think. You know how to reach me, rob@untether.tv, and I'm sure that Kevin would appreciate hearing about it as well. So go and do that right now. Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Rob.
For you guys who are listening, watching, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, thank you so much. I love that you take a little bit of your day and listen to these things, and I know you find tremendous value, and I will see you next time on untether.tv. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.